So definitely be sure for you guys to check back in to see what's coming up, because we have really cool content every 2 weeks. So our guest tonight is Alex from Uruguay, and he's currently a creative director at Wunderman Thompson in Tokyo. And he's here to answer a very, very interesting question, which is how much risk is too much risk when it comes to your career? So, you know, this is typically an industry where you're expected to take risks, to be bold creatively and in person, and also in your personal life to draw creative inspiration from. But that is most definitely easier said than done, I think, for most of us. So here to answer that question is Alex. Welcome, Alex. Thank you so, so much for being here, for giving us your time. I know it's so early in Tokyo, but welcome.
Thank you, Paula, and thank you everyone for joining. Really happy to be here, and even though it's a bit early for me, but I think we'll power through it.
For sure, for sure. So the first question that I want to ask you is, why did you think that it was important to talk about this right now, sort of in this current moment? Like, what is it about this question that speaks to you, really?
Well, for me, it's important, and I'm gonna try to avoid making this conversation a conversation about self-help as much as possible. That's not the plan at all. But in my experience, taking risks has been what has been the main driver to keep pushing my career forward. So I wanted to see if that's something that that would inspire people, you know, to push themselves to actually whatever they don't like through risks. With that being said, I also understand that risk is super contextual. So what's risky for me might not be risky for someone who has millions of dollars in their bank account, or the kind of risk I can take are completely out of the question for someone who has 3 kids. So, and some of the risks they might take, for example, choosing a really expensive kid for a really expensive school for their kids, that's not contextual for me, and I wouldn't take that risk because I don't have any kids, and that would involve, you know, trying to make more money, trying to meet to get to that goal, trying to pay for that. So that's one of the first things I wanted to mention, that risk, what I consider risky might not be risky for you, and vice versa. It's super contextual. That being said, I also think I think of myself as a privileged person, and I don't mean that to, you know, I can afford to take some risks that maybe some other people can't afford to take. I had a good education that my parents helped pay for. So today I have a set of tools that maybe some other people don't have, or you know, I can take a risk because I was able to push a career that allows me to take certain risks that maybe some other people wouldn't be able to take.
For sure. No, yeah, that's a great foot for us to start our conversation on. And I think even for us to understand your context, maybe you could get a little bit then into your background, into sort of summarize sort of your creative career up until Tokyo, just so that we sort of also understand your context and where you're coming from with your perspective of risk. And I just want to do a quick interruption, guys. I forgot to say in the beginning, if you want to send questions, please send it in the chat box. We will be taking questions throughout the conversation. You don't have to wait until the end of the talk. I'll just like toggle between my questions and your questions. Okay, guys? So chat box. Go ahead, Alex. Tell me about your creative background.
So I was born in Uruguay, and then when I was around 18 years old, I started getting really into advertising when I was like 16, 17, 16 actually. And I would see that the people that wanted to join advertising were the people that really didn't know what to do with their lives and what they liked. So advertising or marketing seemed to be like their go-to answer. And I felt like I needed to make a change. I needed to actually do something different to be able to stand out. So then I pushed to study abroad, and I was lucky enough to be able to do that. Then from there, I studied for, I did college and university in the US. Then I got a job. Then at one point I was working in both an advertising agency and a sports TV channel. and was trying to drive my career forward and wasn't getting the right leads or the right opportunities that I wanted. So I started researching, and I found that through Miami Ad School, I could get more opportunities. A lot of people in the industry had actually recommended the school. So I pushed for that. And after that, I started, a lot of my friends actually moved to New York. I had a couple leads. I actually had an offer right away, but it was an offer that I would have dreamt of before Miami Ad School. But after Miami Ad School, I could say I got a bit too overconfident maybe. But in a way, the offer was from the Hispanic market, and nothing wrong with the Hispanic market. In fact, I joined the Hispanic market later on, but I didn't want to start right away in the Hispanic market, mainly because I didn't want to be pigeonholed in one specific market. I wanted to be general market, Hispanic, digital, traditional. I wanted to be able to do it all. So I waited it out, which was really risky because I got to the point that I had to leave the US, because when you're an international student, you only get a certain amount of time to get a job within that visa, or you're illegal. So it got really close. I think you get 100 days, and I got the job like in the day 70th or something like that, after having rejected like actually 2 offers. So it was risky. Then after that, I joined Sapient for about 3 years. Then I joined one of my actual mentor at Alma DDB when he became the ECD there. And then after that, all my friends in New York were actually doing a lot of really fun stuff for the general market. They were actually shooting a movie. They were doing fun work, and I wanted to be a part of that. So my wife and I, Nadia and I, we decided to quit everything and move to New York with no job. So we were lucky enough to find a job a week before the move. And after that, that was a proximity video. I spent around 2 years there, and then I went freelance for about a year or so, a year plus. As a freelancer, I worked at Publicis New York, BBH, and a few other places. And then freelance dried up a little bit because maybe I took too many risks. And at one point, I had been with no gig for about 5 months. Then an offer came in from Publicis Seattle. So we moved to Seattle, which was in a way a dream of mine, because I grew up listening to grunge music, and
Yeah, I was
been
gonna
a
say
really
your dream is to
influential.
live in Seattle. Like, huh?
It is
Kidding.
like Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain. Like in
Yeah.
a way, it was like
Pearl
a
Jam,
fit,
no?
you know.
Pearl Jam too, I think.
Pearl Jam, not so much. I'm more a Nirvana guy.
Yeah.
So, but it's still all part of the same, culture. So it was like, yeah, this actually feels right. So we moved to Seattle, spent 2 years there, and then at one point, I felt like my career had gotten stuck a little bit, and we had always been wanting to live in Asia for a while. So it got to a point that we were like, okay, let's just make Asia happen. So I quit my job and just aligned a few internships. A few interviews to go to in the cities that I thought were the most advertising-oriented cities in Asia, which were Shanghai, Singapore, and Tokyo. Bangkok is also one of the power cities in terms of advertising, but we just chose those 3, and I lined a few interviews there. Ended up getting a job in Singapore, and after 2 years in Singapore, we made the move to Tokyo, which was ultimately the end goal whenever we wanted to make the move to Asia. So sorry if the intro is a bit too long, but there's no way I can summarize my career in a shorter way, because
no, that was awesome.
There's been so many like back and forth, and so much jumping around.
So many moves, and how many years? How many years moves, and how many years do you think?
So I've been, since my second my second tour, let's say, I graduated in 2008, but before I had worked in advertising for about 3 years.
Wow, that's crazy. No, but it's cool that you kind of go through everything, because then also if someone has a specific question about like, oh, what is it like to work in Seattle? They can always ask you about something specific in your career. So that's really, really interesting. So now kind of we've arrived in Tokyo then, let's say, and you're a creative director there. You're in a strange, completely different culture. I'm sure there was a lot of culture shock when you got there. So can you tell me about sort of how risk played into that decision, and kind of how that transition was? And if you took any risks, I guess what I'm asking is if there were any risks sort of on a personal level, but then also on a professional level, or was it more one than the other? Like, no, it was, now I'm working in Tokyo, but living, it's fine. How is that scenario for you?
So, of course, this has been a super weird situation because, we moved to Tokyo in December 2019, and the pandemic hit in January, and we've been working from home since February, like end of February of 2020. So there's things I can't really gauge in terms of, the human or the work aspect in a natural way because of the COVID situation, right? But in terms of the risk we took, I mean, it was something that, in terms of culture shock, it hasn't been that big because Singapore, in a way, prepared us a little bit to more of the Asia culture and ways of working. Some things that are not cool to do in an Asian agency, in a Tokyo agency, they were sort of similar in the Singapore agency. So in terms of culture shock, it wasn't that risky. It is kind of risky to move into a culture and a work environment where unfortunately I don't speak Japanese. So at some points you really feel like you're in a completely different world, and that's a bit challenging, but it's a risk that we love taking because we were so in love and with the city. It's something that's even a bit dumb to say, but we have a chemistry with Tokyo that we haven't felt anywhere else, and we really wanted to push to make that happen. So in terms of the risks we assumed to actually make the move, well, one of the first risks was to announce within my agency in Singapore that I wanted to make the move, which could go really wrong if they don't want to help you, or if they don't think it's the right move for you, or if they think you haven't been there long enough. So that could have actually turned into a disaster. But luckily enough, everyone I was working with, everyone in leadership, they actually allowed the move and enabled me to start looking and to push for that. So it worked out well, but it was a risky ask to make, especially
in times of crisis. But
exactly,
we're not there yet. I think everybody needs a break from COVID. Let's ask a few more questions that are not crisis related, and then we'll deal with that. But you did mention something that I thought was very curious and worth mentioning, which is, this desire or this intention to take risks and sort of follow your dreams, but at the same time not burn bridges, right? Because you said you were maybe a little bit worried that Singapore would not be helpful, or if that would be a problem. So have there been, do you see that? Is that a conscious effort on your part? Have there been moments where, you had to maybe not take a risk because you're like, oh, I'm going to burn this bridge. I don't want to burn this bridge. How do you also deal with that? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that idea of sort of, maybe I've been at my agency for only 6 months and then I'll go to a different one. Is my agency going to say that I left too soon? Whatever it may be. How has that been for you?
I think that comes back to the point of risks being contextual. And in that way, I think one of the main advices I would give to people thinking of taking certain risks in their careers is to definitely don't burn any bridges, because and in that way, what it means is that to me is an unspoken and it's a written rule in a way, because at some places you can't leave before a certain amount of time. Or for example, in Singapore, I had a 3-month notice. So you needed to tell the agency that you were leaving, and then you had to spend 3 months in that place. So of course you could just go, but that's just, you can't burn bridges because it's a really small industry and everything you do will eventually come back to you. But to expand on that, there's the way I like taking risks, and both my wife and I, the way we actually approach it is what would be the minimum, the minimum impact that the risks you take will have on the people and the companies and the things around you in your environment. So it's not good to take a risk and then fuck a bunch of people around you in the process. So it's basically a little bit of a controlled blast. It's in that way, I think, yeah, you need to really know, you can't just come in and demolish everything. You gotta do everything, in the way that, yeah, if it goes wrong, it'll hurt you and no one else but you. So I think in that way, it's really important to take that into account. You can't just do whatever you want. You need to take those things into account and be mindful of the projects that you're on. Like, don't quit in the middle of a project, see it through, help everyone make the most of it. And then you can look into, making a move and so forth. And something I forgot to mention earlier, I think, like I said, risks are contextual, and it's not only about quitting a specific job or trying to move to a specific place. I think there's risk also in the kind of work you push. If I push a funny idea for a really serious brief, that's risky. Or if I tell the client that their use of budget for social media shouldn't just be a Facebook post, but it should actually be a video. There's risk in the decisions you make in your day-to-day as well. And that's also important to keep in mind. It's not only about, it's not only about quitting and going somewhere else. It's also about how you push your day-to-day and how you push the people around you to take risks and to embrace those situations, to push the work and to have more fun and to do more interesting stuff, to put more interesting stuff out there.
Yeah, 100%. I thought of so many things while you were talking, like even sometimes doing a personal project can feel super risky if you're doing something really personal to you. Let's say if you're doing something more autobiographical or something like that. And you raised an excellent point in terms of risk is so context-based. And I wrote this question while you were speaking, which is, like, what kind of good risks do you think someone who works in the creative industry can take if they sort of want to move up in the same city that they're working in? Because sometimes, as far as I understand, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of times you can negotiate sort of better positions and better salaries when you're moving cities. And I feel like some people are challenged by doing that within the same city. So kind of like, so tell me about that, your thoughts on that.
So this has happened to me before, but I've never done it on purpose, and I've never used that to my benefit or advantage. For example, one good risk you can take is if you're trying to get promoted and you're not getting promoted. I've seen a lot of people actually get an offer in front of their an outside offer in front of their current employer, and use that as a means to drive a potential promotion. One of the places that I had been gunning for a promotion for a long time, and the second I told them I was leaving, they offered that promotion. I was like, no, that's not what I want.
Like this, it wasn't a game for me. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't. I was leaving. Like, it wasn't a negotiable, or it wasn't a me. It wasn't an idea for me to actually start negotiating, but it actually worked that way. And so, yeah, if you, for example, if you're trying to, you want something like a promotion, and you're trying to get that, one of the potential risks is saying that you're leaving, that you have another offer. Ideally, that offer's real. Otherwise, you're a bit insane. But hey, I think that's part of the risk too. Another risk could be, choosing a less sexy client within the agency because you see potential in better work, instead of, for example, I know the team that was working on the Old Spice work at White, and Old Spice was an account that no one wanted. Everyone wanted, of course, to work on Nike and Coca-Cola, and then look at them now, the people that did the Old Spice commercial of I'm on a horse and so forth. They took a risk, and it ended up working really well for them.
100%, yeah. So since you started also talking about like specific works and clients now, I also wanted to ask you, in your career, you've worked in so many places and so many cities and different cultures. So if you could tell me sort of what were the biggest risks that you think you took? If you could highlight a couple, like one or two of the biggest risks, even if it was a small moment, like you said, I spoke up to a client when everybody else wouldn't say it. And then also if there was a risk at some point that didn't pay off, and kind of how you dealt with it.
Of course. So I think the first really big risk that I took was I got an offer during the portfolio night, the portfolio review right after Miami Ad School, and I declined that offer because I was looking for something a bit different, and I was trying to push my journey for something different. So that was really risky because I almost had to leave the US right after that. Then the other risk we took, and we talked about this before, we just quit our jobs in Miami to move to New York with no job. And New York is an especially hard city to move to with no job, because basically people won't rent you a place. Even if you pay upfront the first year or whatever, people don't want you there because it's really hard to get you out of a rent if you stop paying, for example. Mm-hmm. Then another risk was just quitting it all to actually move to Asia. And also some pushbacks that we've done on clients and on specific projects, that has also been risky. I can't really put my finger on it in terms of a really specific example, also without mentioning too many people or accounts or agencies, but that also has been some of the risks I've taken. In terms of risks that went wrong, I think I can think of two. For example, when I was freelance in New York, this was around 2015, we decided freelance was really good. For like almost a year, freelance was really good. Like I was in dream agencies for me. The money was great. I was working with super talented people, and I got a bit cocky, and I was like, maybe this is a good moment for us to travel and do a little bit of a sabbatical that we've been wanting to do. So we traveled to Japan, and the second I came back, so I was saying no to some freelance offers because we were traveling. The second we came back, everything dried up, and I couldn't find a gig for like 5 months or more. So that was really risky, and that was I think I would put that one under the dumb risk category. But at the same time, that was our first time in Japan, and that's a city we fell in Tokyo, and that's a city we fell in love with. So it ends up being a risk that paid off. Another risk that I took, or I didn't take, at one point during freelance, I had two offers. One with a dream agency of mine for about a month, but sort of smaller accounts, and the other one at a not too bad agency for a 3-month gig with a potential TV production. And when you're freelance, it's really hard to go on production, because they usually choose the full-timers to go on production because of a budget issue, but also because it's in a bit, I feel like it's a reward for the people that are full-time. So instead of staying at the dream agency, I went over to the one that was promising TV in 3 months, and that backfired because that gig not only didn't last 3 months, it actually lasted 3 weeks. It wasn't a good fit, and we I think it's safe to say we didn't make any TV. So I feel like I should have taken the bigger risk and go with my gut and go with the dream agency, and not necessarily play it safe, or risk that possibility for a potential greater good.
Wow. Yeah, no, definitely. That makes so much sense. So I guess now we can talk about COVID. We would definitely be remiss, right, not to mention what's going on right now. And I also think it's important to ask this question, as we talked about before, because there might be a lot of people that are scared to make big changes right now, like maybe even being unhappy at their job, and say, well, I'm not going to move now because there's so much going on, and there's a crisis and there's a pandemic. So but let's say there's a lot of what we're going through now that is unknown and the future is unknown. And the only certainty that we have is that there will always be a crisis, like from time to time, right? So you've talked about your move to Tokyo, where you moved to Tokyo, just a few months before the pandemic. And if you hadn't done that sort of as quickly as you did, you might not have gone for another 4 or 5 years. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
So
now it's
yeah,
Sorry.
if you could talk about that. No, that's it. Just if you could talk about that, and if there's any insecurity that comes up for you, any fear, or if you see it also in the people who are on your team, people you work with, even bosses, like what's going on in people's minds right now, and any advice that you might have for people.
I think it's really hard to, for us, it was a bit of a mix between luck and the result of pure effort. So, but I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna say that we weren't lucky, because we were. I mean, this pandemic was completely unpredictable, and if we had delayed, we had other plans. We had plan B, plan C. If we had delayed us coming here or pushing to come here by a couple months, I feel like it wouldn't have happened by now, and it will probably not happen for the next few years, because they're not, like, the borders are closed. Asking for an agency to give you a visa right now, it's a lot more of a taller ask. It's a completely different environment. But that's also, I think that introduces my next sort of I'd say it's almost like a rule of thumb, or it's how I approach my life. I think bad shit is always going to happen. There's a lot of things you don't have control over that are always going to happen in your life. And I think COVID is one of those things. But I think one is to focus on the things you can actually make happen and assume risk in a responsible and structured way. I think you focus on the things that you can actually push, and you try to just navigate the bad things that are going to happen in the best possible way, in the best possible way you can. So I think COVID is one of those situations. Yeah, it's happening to everyone, so that should be a bit of that should maybe make you feel better. I mean, I have I know a lot of people in the industry that have been let go because of the situation, of the economic situation, of the pandemic, and so forth. So if that happens to you, that becomes another opportunity that you need to push through. But in terms of that, don't wait for something like that to happen if you're unhappy, or if you want something else. The fact that maybe a bunch of agencies are not hiring or not, giving making visas, that doesn't mean that everyone's not doing that. There are people, the economy is still moving forward. People are still needing people to work on different accounts, different stuff. So it's just a matter of finding the right in and the right opportunity to make the most of.
Yeah, and hearing you speak, it also really seems like having a strong support system or network in any time in our lives is always important, but especially in times of a pandemic and a crisis, I feel like having a support system, having a network of people, like people you worked with, is really essential now, not just for our mental health, but also for our work. So how much sort of mitigates that risk, or risks that you take, knowing that you have a support system from your wife, for example, or family, and also having a network, for example, like Miami Ad School, and having those contacts like all around the world. How's that situation for you?
I think that's super important. I think in a way, I feel like risk taking is a cog in a machinery. So it's not isolated from, like we talked about, it's not isolated from your context, and it's not as isolated from the people that you work with or the companies that you work with. You'll need people's help. You'll need people's support. You need people by your side. For example, when I wanted to go from Singapore to Tokyo, being in a WPP agency, there were several agencies that I couldn't approach because it would be poaching. So that's why I also opened it up at my agency and told them I wanted to move, so that if they approved it, I could actually, talk to every agency in Tokyo But at the same time, if they hadn't approved it, it could have just, I would have gotten fired. So it's important to, to get allies, to get people by your side, to have the support of in this case, the network, the support of the people around you, your family, of course, your partner. I think that's crucial. In my career, I've been really lucky to have the support of the Miami Ad School Network. I've gotten leads from former students. I've gotten leads from leads or contacts. I've gotten leads from mentors and former teachers, or classmates and friends. So, but that's not, I think your network's not limited to a school or past agencies. I think it's also how you approach different people on LinkedIn or different people on social media. For example, if I really like something that I see, if I really like a piece of work or a piece of art or whatever, I always contact the people that created it, to to look for a job, but to establish a rapport, to keep growing my network, and to you'd be surprised how many people are actually willing to help with nothing at stake for them.
No strings
people that are not
attached.
from the school, no strings attached, people that are not from the school, people that, people you just exchange a few words with. People are out there helping each other, and which also means that when someone reaches out to you, you gotta be able to, to leave it all for a second and actually help those other creatives or those other people trying to look for a change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's part of what you do also by sort of staying in the Miami Ad School Network as a teacher, and also now as a boss, I guess, because you have two interns from Brazil. It's two, right? Two interns from Brazil.
And I have two interns from Brazil, and one from Argentina, from Peru, but she's in Argentina, and one from Peru, but she's in Germany.
And they're all interning remotely, which is crazy.
They're all interning remotely. I think they're having fun. The time zone difference and setting up meetings and etc. It becomes a bit of a clusterfuck for me, not for them. Well, for them, I'm sure too, because I try to avoid them having to work, Tokyo hours, but sometimes there's long days, long nights, and everything just melts into like and in a known of what time is it. Like, you never know what day it is, when things are due. Like, it's a bit of a challenge, but we're making it work. And the team that I have now, I mean, all the teams that I've worked with so far have been excellent. The team that we're working with now, we're having a lot of fun. They're super talented. They're pushing a lot of beautiful stuff. So yeah, we're making it work, but it is a challenge.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting, to also have this mixture of cultures and people from all around the world, bringing all of that knowledge and sort of diversity into. So I guess that's the flip side. That's the other side of the coin to this pandemic, is this sort of new way to connect with people.
Totally. And one thing we need to find a replacement for, which I think is one of the biggest challenges, especially for the people that are about to graduate or the people getting into the industry, is now you don't get the chance to push. You don't get a chance to socialize. You don't get a chance to show that you're willing to work late for a specific project that your idea just died on, that you're a good teammate and you're willing to just stay behind, not go for drinks or whatever, and just help the team with the winning idea. You don't get those chances to actually mingle and help each other out and really collaborate, or get to know each other. Now everything's a lot more, in a way, it's a lot colder. It's a lot more goal driven. We get to a meeting, people present their ideas, you see which idea works, which doesn't, and then you just press leave on the Zoom call, and that's the end of it. So I think that's a challenge that every junior, everyone coming into a new job or a new industry is going to have. And I think it's a challenge we're going to have in terms of integrating people and in terms of making things work for everyone. I think. Do
you think that's I want to stop right there, because I thought that was really interesting. Do you think that presents a bigger challenge, like, let's say, for someone who's starting out in the industry, rather than someone who's been in the industry for a longer time, so they already have
Sure.
somewhat of a network?
Yeah, by all means. I mean, not only because of the network, but to start out from zero and to never meet your coworkers in person for a bunch of years, that's gonna be really, really weird.
Yeah.
And we need to find ways of replacing that and of enabling that. I've been in this industry long enough to know how amazing it feels to go out for drinks after a long brief, or to go out for drinks in the middle of a long night of work. To actually relax yourself and create situations in which you enable different ideas just flowing just by actually dropping the work for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's not gonna be, if you don't create those situations now, you don't force yourself to create them. We're only gonna be measured by our output and by the work that we put out there. And for someone who's just starting, and and you're trying to learn, and it's sometimes harder to gauge what's right, what's wrong, I feel like it's gonna be a big challenge, which doesn't mean that it's gonna be impossible or that it's not gonna, that it's gonna hurt you. By no means. I think it's just gonna be different, and we need to find the ways of making that difference work for everyone.
Yeah. But I think what you mentioned,
agencies are still gonna need juniors, and agencies are still gonna need people. So it's still out there, but we need to reframe the way we work together.
Yeah, totally. But I think what you mentioned before in terms of reaching out to people that you admire, or even if you like their work, that's already such a great step to put into practice. And we can do that now because we're all online. I did that once or twice in my life. I had a hero of mine that I read in a book called The Soul of an Octopus. And it talks about octopuses. And the author mentions a Brazilian research biologist, this amazing person. And I was so impressed by this woman that I found her on LinkedIn and reached out to her. I'm like, I read about you in a book and I love your work. And we became friends. It's not really what I work with, but we became friends, and I'm so happy to have met like a hero of mine,
Exactly. And that's in a way something I love about advertising. It really gives you a chance to work with your idols. So one piece of advice unsolicited advice would be to know your idols, because in advertising you might actually get a chance to work with them. Like, for example, I have friends who have worked with Michel Gondry, and I haven't been able to work with them yet, but really the people that you love, advertising will give you a chance to work with them. So that being said, I've reached out to a really famous designer on LinkedIn a couple of years ago, because I saw that he had collaborated on an advertising piece, and I was like, this is awesome. Like, I just asked him to connect, and then I sent him a message, and he replied. I was like, wait, what? He replied, and then we left it open to actually collaborate on a project sooner or later. So it's the same situation you had. I put myself out there, and maybe to risking, just like, who the fuck are you, or something like that.
But or never, or silence, opposite. Or radio silence,
never
getting an answer, and you're like, oh, he thinks I'm a stalker.
but that's the thing. I feel like we're all human. We're all flawed. No one's like intrinsically better than the next person. Even if you're doing better in life, we all have the same fears, the same worries. So if you just strip that all away, and you just go for it, and you contact whoever you want to contact, and you just you make yourself available, things are going to happen.
Yeah. So we have our first question from the group. So Alfredo, thank you for your question. He wants to know, at what age do you think it is actually late to get in an agency, or I guess to get into advertising is maybe what he means also? I have an answer for that. Let's see what you think.
I think never.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the answer. I think never is the answer I want to give you. Advertising is an ageist industry. I think every industry is ageist in a way, but advertising is especially ageist. But you can always find the right place that wouldn't be paying attention to that. You can always find the right. Maybe you don't go to an advertising agency, and you go to a brand site like Spotify or Apple, Google. Like I think you need to make your limitations work, or the situations work to your advantage. If you're a bit older, it means that you've done other stuff in between and other stuff before joining advertising, and that gives you an added value that maybe a 20-year-old that has only been in school doesn't have. Advertising is also about you being able to make stories and stories relevant to other people. So if you've had a life filled with experiences that are not only advertising related, that actually gives you an added value to add to the stories that you're putting out there. So I really wouldn't make age an issue in your career. In fact, I will make it an added value. I will make it, something that you can pull from, because you're more experienced.
Yeah, I think it's also about like really honoring your own journey and valuing your own journey. We are all unique. So for example, I started Miami Ad School when I was 27. I used to do other things,
same.
and then I decided to be a photographer at 27. And I had people think that it was strange, but at the same time, when I got there, I thought that I was laser focused on what I was doing.
Exactly.
I was not out partying. Everybody, a lot of people were, and again, it's different experiences. For some people, it's that phase of their lives where for me, I was like working, shooting, waking up at 5 a.m. to take pictures. And so I was super, super focused on work, on getting a visa to stay in the US and to be able to work there after graduation. I don't think I would have had that same focus if I had gone when I was 23 or 24, maybe, but I don't think so.
I feel the same way. Yeah. I feel the same way. And
how old were you when you started school? How old were you when you started?
I think I was 26 or 27, but I was one of the older in my group.
Me too.
I was one of the oldest in my group, but that also meant that I had already been working in an agency for almost 3 years, so that I knew what I didn't want to do and what I wanted to do, as opposed to some of the other people I was working with. I don't think age is an issue. In fact, I feel like, just like you said, you need to make it work to your advantage. But in terms of what you talked about, I think you bring up a really good point, understanding your journey. So advertising, of course, I feel like every industry, we tend to and now with social media, we tend to compare ourselves to other people and other people's careers and so forth. And that's one of the biggest mistakes you can do. I'm not saying that I haven't done it. It's something that is really hard to get over. But I feel like you need to understand your journey, and you need to understand that whatever is happening to other people around you doesn't mean that it won't happen to you. It's just you have a different you'll have a different journey to get to it. You just gotta keep pushing, and you need to understand that your journey will be different. Embrace it, but keep pushing what you want to get to, even if it's a bit later, even if it's following different directions or following different paths in a way.
Yeah, embracing is a great word. Even like we talked before about, possibly making the question about embracing risk. So that's a great thing that you bring up. So that takes me to my next question, which is even about embracing lots of different skills and this desire to do lots of different things, because you did art direction and you worked with that for a long time, but then now you also write. I remember you telling me that you wrote a play, which seems like a huge risk. Like, talk about risky. I'm going to write a play, right? So if you could talk to me a little bit about this sort of edge or this comfort, that line between the edge and the comfort zone. Has that been a consequence of managing your dreams and risks? Like, tell me about this scenario in your head.
There's a risk I never took that in a way I wish I would have taken, which was I think I enjoy writing a bit more than I enjoy designing, and that's been sometimes I feel like one of the things I do in embracing risk is trying to eliminate the what ifs, and it's one of the few what ifs that I have in my life is actually what would have happened if I had switched from art direction to writing in school. One of the reasons why I didn't do it is because I didn't want to be being ESL, English as second language. I felt like I wasn't gonna have the same opportunities as English, like English speakers for the same kind of gigs for the general market, for example. So I felt like me being an art director would, in a way, eliminate that issue. But the more I keep growing in my career, the more I realize that I love writing, and it's one of the things I enjoy the most. So, but at the same time, the idea of a script longer than 30 seconds was really intimidating to me. So in Singapore, I decided to, my wife, she's an actress, and she goes into all these workshops, theater schools, and so forth. She discovered a writing workshop for short play. So I took it and I wrote my first play, which was actually staged in Singapore, and I didn't direct it, but it's something I wrote. And now I'm writing a show with a friend of mine. So yeah, and embracing risk in that way has been amazing. But it's also about, you know, just trying to be a creative, not only with what you do at your job, but also just trying to find creative outlets in everything you do, and trying to push things that you enjoy the most, and trying to focus on that for as much time as you have, you know, as much free time as you have.
Interesting. Very interesting. So now I kind of want to ask you, because we only have about like 10 minutes left, more or less. So we always like to kind of start to wrap it up with some very practical sort of takeaways that people can apply to their lives. And we talked about this before, is if there is a structure to risk taking, and if so, what is that? Or even like, what is risk for you then? For me, hearing you speak, I wrote down a few words because I was like, wow, it's so inspiring. I wrote down strategy, so having a strategy.
Yeah.
Going with your gut feeling, and being super active in your network and community. Those are my takeaways from what you said. Do you want to add anything? Do you want to talk about it?
I think those are great. I think it's really, timing is really important. Finding the right time and not rushing into it, but at the same time, not waiting for stuff to happen. If you want change, if there's something you don't like, you need to push that change. You need to make yourself available. You need to, you know, enable those situations to happen. Like, for example, if I wanted to live in Tokyo or Asia, it's not only about just sending emails to be in Asia. You need to travel here for 2 months to meet with as many people as possible, because you also need to know that people are taking risks by hiring you. So you need to try to mitigate the risks they'll take for you. Like, for example, will they have to pay for your relocation and for your move and for your travel?
Visa, and
if
visas
you actually
too.
And visas. So
yeah.
So if you make yourself available and you're already there, instead of just waiting for them to actually pay for the whole move, then you're actually asking them to take less risks for yourself, and you're actually you're assuming some of this risk yourself. So I think the structure is one of the most important things is timing and making yourself available, on top of all the other three that you mentioned.
Cool. We have one more question from Mario. So he says, I want to leave my job to move to another place and use that as an opportunity to grow. From what I understand, he doesn't know anybody there, but it's something that he feels he needs to do. Do you think I'm crazy, or is that something good? That's his question. I think we've all felt that.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think that's something great. But the first thing I would advise you to do is, if you don't know anyone in that community or in that place or in that market, the first thing you need to do is you need to look at the work that you love from that place and start looking at the people that have produced that work and start reaching out to them. It's you won't be able to just land in a completely new place and get a job without any contacts or without you pushing, and you won't be able to make that happen just from the place that you're currently at. Like I said before, you need to make yourself available. You need to enable these opportunities to happen, and then you can let the universe do its thing. But first, you need to reach out to people. So I had been looking for a job in Asia before quitting for about a year or so, and I wasn't getting any leads. So I started also talking to recruiters and asking them, what's the right approach. And one of the best advices I got, I had a really funny photo on my LinkedIn, and she was like, look at the people getting jobs in Asia. No one has a funny LinkedIn photo. So I changed the photo and I changed my bio a little bit. And you need to get in the shoes of the people working in those markets, and you need to ask questions and sort of get closer to the people that are already working in the markets that you want to work in, to sort of gauge for yourself to be able to what's the word, to be able to create your own version of what's going on and push for that within that version. You won't be able to make it happen in a vacuum or from really far away without you actually getting your feet wet and really trying to immerse yourself into that culture or that market. You need to look at the work that you like, and reach out to the people that are making that work. Talk to recruiters, ask them questions. Whenever you have a small window to ask questions, do that, because that's half the battle. Otherwise, I think if I hadn't changed my profile photo, I will still be
looking
in a
for
completely different situation.
That's
looking for reasons why it's not happening.
Wow, that's so curious. It's one tiny, huge thing.
In Asia, one of the things, I mean, and of course, Asia is a huge continent, and I can't really say, this is the way it works. But one of the things I saw that were sort of constants were that the profile photos weren't that crazy as opposed to other places in the world. And their bios, which I will never do, well, never say never, but I will always try to not do, most bios are in third person, which to me just makes me feel like a football player. So I try to never talk in third person. I try to talk in first person. It's my career.
Right.
But
so Alex was born in Uruguay.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I try to avoid that.
One quick observation here before my last question. Faisal is here. He said that he hopes to dive into this problem of copywriting, because he says he has this problem of like English is not his first language. And he started the copywriting program at Miami Ad School, Madrid. So I guess.
I think don't let, it's a decision I wish I had made. It's a risk I wish I had taken before. Don't let, the language limitation stop you from pushing the career that you want. Some of the most talented people I've seen in this industry are actually working in a language that it's not the first language. And especially like I went to Madrid school too, and some of the most talented people I've worked with in the industry period have actually been not amazing at English, but have just found ways of, basically it's advertising and communications and creative. It's just about finding that insight that makes your work relevant and
unique
and
too.
Then unique, and pushing the storytelling to make it memorable. So the language issue, just make it work to your advantage. That will help you actually simplify the story to the simplest form and to the most straightforward form. It could actually be a good thing. The humor, the tone, that's set by your skills and not necessarily your use of the language. Of course, keep crafting your language and keep reading and crafting it, and have your idols, and if you like a show, read the scripts and so forth. But that shouldn't be a limitation. You should make that into an opportunity by all means.
Yeah, I definitely recommend Faisal, and for anyone who is interested in this, not to toot our own horn or anything, but we did a nomad talk with Giulia Magaldi, who is an Italian who went to Miami Ad School in Miami, and we did a whole episode just like this one, specifically talking about this subject, like why it's an advantage for you to actually have English as a second language working in these countries. And one of the things she said I thought was so cool, she's like, you have an outsider perspective. So a lot of times, and this speaks to what you said, Alex, a lot of times you can see the simplicity that maybe the person who's immersed in the culture or who's native to that culture can't even see it. So
exactly, it gives you the tools to have a different point of view and find insights that maybe, like you said, people who are too close to the problem or too close to the situation won't see. And there's always ways of fine-tuning the copy and you know, getting the right people to help you with it. But intrinsically, the idea, use the power of the idea to your advantage. That I think would be my advice. Don't limit yourself to you know, how much how much you can use a language, but use the power of the idea to make the work better.
100%. Last question for you, Alex. So to answer the overall theme of the talk, how much risk is too much risk when it comes to your career? If you could sort of summarize everything we've talked about today and any final thoughts. Oh, we have a last question. Maybe we could go over a little bit. I was gonna stop you. There's a last question. If we can go over just a little bit. Sharon is asking that she said, you've taken several risks in relocating to different places. What is the next risk you plan on taking? Is there a new place you are looking to move and take that risk? Go ahead.
Like I said before, and I'm sorry to sound like a cliche, never say never. We're really, really happy in Tokyo, and we're trying to stay here for as long as possible. Otherwise, for us, the US is home. But one thing I'm gonna try not to do anymore is quit to change something without anything aligned. That's draining you. And this is a bit going against what we just talked about, but I've been doing that for like almost 15 years. It drains your bank account. It drains
it's
your
about
energy.
What you talked about, the context, right? Like right now,
exactly.
You're in a different context.
And I've also gotten to a point in my career where I've gotten to a milestone that I really wanted to get to. So now I can actually, I'm not gonna say I can rest on it, but I don't have to keep pushing, you know, moving to different cities as much as I did before, because we got into the city that we wanted to be in the most. So in terms of that risk, I wanna make the most of the place that I'm at now without looking for change. And that also might be the other risk that I'm taking. You know, just betting on a place more than I've ever done that before. So that's one of the risks. The other risk that I'm actually thinking of taking and I'm willing to take is, I'm, like I said before, I'm writing a show with a friend of mine, and I think the risk would be to actually go there and make it and film it, produce it, and of course try to sell it to Netflix or Hulu or one of those places. So I think that's the other risk I'm looking forward to taking sometime soon. But then some of the other risks I take as I'm writing the pilot and the different episodes, sometimes I send it to some of my friends in my former, you know, Miami High School classmates who are actually like directors, writers, you know, they do that for a living, not as a personal project. And they destroyed my script a couple times. And that's a risk I take, because I get so deflated after that. And then it's so hard to actually get back to it. But yeah, it's a risk I'm willing to take, because it makes the work better, it makes the scripts better, it makes the show better. But I think those are the two. One risk I'm not willing to take for now, which is just, you know, being like, fuck it, and moving to a new place without nothing aligned. And the other risk that I'm willing to take is exploring the writer side and the writing the show aspect a little more.
So for you currently, risk taking is more about your work rather than physically like moving to different places.
Yeah. It's mainly because we got to the place that we wanted to be in the most. Mm-hmm. So now I don't need to keep looking for the next place. I can focus on taking other risks.
Yeah. So let's, unless anyone else has another question, I think, no, thank you everyone for sending your questions. And I put in the link in the chat of the 2 YouTube talks that I think we talked about sort of briefly here, but we really focus on those questions in the other talks. So let's end on a self-help note. No, I'm kidding. With how much risk, with how much risk then is too much risk when it comes to your career, or sort of how to embrace healthily as your closing thoughts for tonight.
Just like we talked before, I think one of the main risks I'm not willing to take, and I feel like no one should, is burning bridges. You can't let people down in the risks you're taking. So like we said before, like it's gotta be like a controlled blast sort of situation, in that the risks you take need to impact the least amount of people possible. Because then you're not only doing it to yourself, you're actually putting a lot of people at risk. Of course, when you're working on a specific account, for example, and you're taking a risk of presenting a certain idea, you're not taking that risk by yourself. You're all agreeing on a specific risk, and that wouldn't be, you believe in something and you go for it. But I would really tell people not to burn any bridges. I think that's too much risk. But then also, I think quitting a job in the middle of a project, that's risky, but it's not necessarily the right kind of risk. I think in that sense, that to me is too much risk. But like I said before, it's all contextual. Maybe for someone with 2 kids, quitting a job without anything aligned, that's a risk. And that's a risk they're not willing to take because you need to feed your kids, or you need to pay for school. So I think, like I said before, I think it's really personal. But in my mind, it's the main risk I'm not willing to take is burning bridges. I think that's something you really, really need to avoid.
Yeah, I think hearing you talk, I feel like thinking long-term helps as well, because then you can assess your risk now in terms of what you really want now. Like, I want this now. But then also put it into context, like, okay, am I still going to feel this way a year from now? So I feel like that could be a way to sort of contain the blast, as you say, and control where the debris is going to fall.
But at the same time, so the flip side of that same problem is you also need to know that maybe some things you shouldn't wait for, because you never know what's going to happen. Like a pandemic might hit.
Yeah, like your case with Tokyo.
Yeah, so you really need to gauge, put everything on the table and really gauge, timing. I think timing is essential for.
And if you can, and pull the trigger.
And to push for changes. Yeah.
100%.
And then there's also that notion of, do you have a plan B? Do you have a plan C? Will having a plan B or a plan C actually distract you from focusing on plan A? Like, those are things you need to gauge and really decide for yourself. I think no one can, no matter how much of a self-help this talk can be, that's really personal, and you shouldn't let anyone decide for you.
Yeah. Like, honor your journey and make decisions that make sense for you and your context, for sure.
One of the people I talked to when I was trying to move to Tokyo kept telling me that I should stay in Singapore because Tokyo wasn't a good market. And at one point I told that person, I'm not going to, because they were kept telling me to either stay in Singapore or go to Vietnam. I was like, that's not my dream. I'm pushing for my dream and I'm trying to make my dream happen. Staying here or going somewhere else, it's not what I want. So I will never forgive myself if I never at least give it all, give it my all to make it happen. Yeah, if it doesn't happen and I give it my all, I'm okay. But
no regrets, because you tried, you gave it your all. Yeah.
And if it doesn't happen, but I didn't give it my all, then I just don't like living with what ifs.
I think we're going to end with that. That's a great line for us to end on. So Alex, I want to thank you so much, seriously, for taking your time. I know it's so early there and you still have a full day of work, but I really want to thank you. I appreciate your time, your thoughts, your wisdom. And I'm sure that you inspired everyone who is here today and everyone who's going to watch on YouTube later. Everyone is thanking you here in the chat. And you guys, you see how nice Alex is? Like, reach out to him. He's great. He's exactly like this as he presented himself in the live. Reach out to me if you guys need anything else. And that's it. Good night, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Alex.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much, Paula.
You're welcome.